Hi everyone, welcome to NXT. Gorilla Monsoon, here with Samoyus and with the Jackal. And today on NXT, we're going to see the Women's World Heavyweight winnings on stake here today, because Rhea Ripley, the World Women's Heavyweight Fighter, will be here today on NXT, Gorilla Monsoon says. You got that right, Samoyus says. Rhea Ripley putting her winnings on stake here today after the first time she became the Women's World Heavyweight Fighter. You know, and we're going to see that here today on NXT. Well, I could say one thing here, the Jackal says, or Cyrus, or whatever you want to call me, you know, is that I don't really think there's any woman wrestler out there, you know, that's going to be bold enough, you know, to fight her, you know, going to be bold enough to fight her for the TWF Women's Heavyweight winnings. I mean, my mistake, the Women's World Heavyweight winnings, my mistake, the Jackal says. But I don't think there'll be any woman wrestler or doll or wrestler or fighter who thinks they're going to be woman enough to take the TWF take the Women's World Heavyweight winnings off of her, the Jackal said. I made that mistake 2 times. Well, I wouldn't worry about it, Gorilla Monsoon says. You make mistakes your whole life, just like the mistake of calling yourself the Jackal, then calling yourself the Cyrus, and then saying you're Don Covens now. Give me a break. You don't know who you are these days. I know who I am. I know I was the Jackal from 9 between 97 YL to 9 between 98 YL, and I know I was a Cyrus from 9 between 99 YL, 9 between 98 YL to 2001 YL. Well, Samoa said, whatever you want to call him, Jackal, Cyrus, he's still the same old creep he's always been. So, Rhea Ripley says, I am the Women's World Heavyweight Fighter. And since, well, they did seek where Max Agora was, but sadly, they seeked her after they took the winnings off of her. So, I don't know if I'm going to give her another shot for it or not. So if any woman out there thinks she's woman enough to face me, to wrestle me, to fight me for the Women's World Heavyweight winnings, then by all means let her come out now. You know who that is, Gorilla Monsoon says? That's Ember Moon. The former WWE NXT Women's Heavyweight Fighter, the former WNXT Women's Tag Team Fighter, and I believe AEW ROH Women's Heavyweight Fighter. Yeah. Alright, Rhea Ripley. I think I'm woman enough to fight you. And as you know, I was a former WWE NXT Women's Heavyweight Fighter. As you know, I was a former WWE NXT Women's Tag Team Fighter. And you know in AEW, I am the ROH Women's Heavyweight Fighter. So that must mean something. Ha ha. Yeah, so is everyone else. I could talk about how I was a former WWE NXT UK Women's Heavyweight Fighter. Or I was a WWE NXT Women's Heavyweight Fighter. Or I was a WWE NXT Raw Women's Heavyweight Fighter. Hell, I could say that if I wanted to as well. I could say I was a WWE SmackDown Women's Heavyweight Fighter before it became the Women's World Heavyweight Fighter. But then I would just be laying off it. But at the end of the day, Ember Moon, your time in WWE wasn't really great. You did a lot of good stuff on NXT. Then you went to Raw for the first time. You were traded to Raw for the first time. Then traded to SmackDown for the first time. Then traded back to NXT again. And then, oh yeah, you got fired. So it really didn't go well, did it? Yeah, you could talk about my time in WWE not going well. But at the end of the day, I think I won a lot more winnings, Ember Moon, than you did. The only thing you ever won was, the WWE NXT Women's Heavyweight winnings. The WWE NXT Women Tag Team winnings. And you supposedly think you're the shit because somehow you won the ROH Women Heavyweight winnings, which doesn't really mean shit, does it? I know that I can win the Women's World Heavyweight winnings from you, Rhea Ripley. I know that I can shame you. And yes, you were a former WWE NXT UK Women's Heavyweight fighter. You were a former WWE NXT Women's Heavyweight fighter. You were a former WWE Women's Tag Team fighter. You were a former WWE Raw Women's Heavyweight fighter. And you were a former WWE SmackDown Heavyweight fighter. Now the World Women's Heavyweight fighter. But I know that at the end of the day, I'm going to take that winnings off of you. And you seem to think that you're unbeatable and unstoppable and unyieldable. But I'm here to tell you, yeah, that's not so true. And I get a fight lord in the ring, or a fight keeper in the ring. Then you are going to be, you'll be the former Women's World Heavyweight fighter if the fight lord can stand up long enough. Come on. Well, this is for the TWF this is for the World Women's Heavyweight winnings. First, she is Ember Moon. And she is the Women's World Heavyweight fighter, Rhea Ripley. Well, first off, Gorilla Monsoon said there have been very few women wrestlers to do what Rhea Ripley has done. I mean, yes, there was China. Yes, there was Asia. Yes, there was Nicole Bass. And if you want to say you could put them on that list, and there was Beth Phoenix. But I think Rhea Ripley is most likely put all those ones to shame. And Gorilla Monsoon said, a hip toss and a body slam on Ember Moon. And Rhea Ripley just body slams her again. She thinks it will be a cakewalk, Gorilla Monsoon says. Yeah, the way she behaves, her mindset, her stand, Samoa said, is truly sad. She seems to believe that she is unbeatable and unstoppable and unyieldable, Samoa says. But we know that's not true. Ember Moon just knocked down Rhea Ripley, Samoa says. The Jackal says, yeah, she's won some and lost some matches. But that was the past. This is the now, the Jackal says. And now she's going to do it to her. She did a riptide on Ember Moon. Now known as Athena to you AEW followers out there, Gorilla Monsoon says. Yeah, that might be true, Samoa says. But will she have enough to get the 1-2-3 on her? We'll have to see, the Jackal says. We'll have to see if Rhea Ripley can beat Ember Moon now, or Athena, whatever you want to call her. We'll call her Ember Moon, the Jackal says. We'll go by that ring name. 1, 2, 3. Ding, ding, ding. Here is your winner, and still TWF Women's Heavyweight fighter. Still the Women's World Heavyweight Fighter, Rhea Ripley. So Rhea Ripley is still the Women's World Heavyweight Fighter, Gorilla Monsoon says. Here today on NXT, beating Ember Moon, Athena, whatever you want to call her, Gorilla Monsoon says. Yeah, I'll give her that. Ember Moon did beat, Rhea Ripley did beat Ember Moon or Athena, whatever you want to call her. We're going to call her Ember Moon. She did beat her, but Ember Moon did do some good stuff in this match. So it's not that it was a one-sided match. Samoa says, well, at the end of the day, the Jackal says, or Cyrus, at the end of the day, it was Rhea Ripley, the women's world heavyweight fighter, who had more of the upside than Ember Moon did. And that's how she kept the women's world heavyweight winnings here today on NXT, the Jackal says. Well, I do know one thing. Mike Lane, Gorilla Monsoon says, is going to be talking with Ember Moon or Athena, whatever you want to call her. They call her Athena now, the Jackal says. Well, I'm calling her Ember Moon, Gorilla Monsoon said, so go law work me. Alright, Gorilla Monsoon. I'm going to be talking with the Women's World Heavyweight Fighter, Rhea Ripley, the only Southernlander women wrestler to hold almost all the women winnings in, WWE, and she's done so kind of well here in the TWF too. So, Rhea Ripley, you're still the Women's World Heavyweight Fighter. You beat Ember Moon or Athena here today on NXT. That's right, Mike Lane. I did win every winnings there was to win in WWE. WWE NXT UK Women's Heavyweight Fighter. WWE NXT Women's Heavyweight Fighter. WWE Raw Women's Heavyweight Fighter. WWE SmackDown Women's Heavyweight Fighter. WWE Women's Tag Team Fighter. And now the World Women's Heavyweight Fighter. And that's all the things I did in WWE on NXT UK and NXT and Raw. Anyway, to tell you right now, I also am a former TWF Women's Heavyweight Fighter too. And Ember Moon or Athena, whatever you want to call her, she thought she was woman enough. She thought she could wrestle me. She thought she could fight me. There is no woman wrestler, no woman fighter, no woman overstar, whatever you want to call them, that can beat me. So I see myself being the Women's World Heavyweight Fighter, not only in WWE, but also in the TWF for a long time. Well, Mike Lane says, you seem to be as happy as a butcher's dog, because you are still the Women's World Heavyweight Fighter. Yeah, I am happy. And I'll tell you what, no one's gonna beat me. No woman is woman enough to beat me. Well, that's Rhea Ripley. Back to you, Gorilla Monsoon. Well, thank you, Mike Lane, for talking with Rhea Ripley, the Women's World Heavyweight Fighter, here today on NXT. And that's all the time we got here for NXT. I, Gorilla Monsoon, for Samoas and the Jackal. We hope you like NXT, and we'll see you tomorrow for Dynamite or Might.